I still remember the way his car pulled up that Sunday afternoon. Late. Always late. Our daughter was already clutching her small backpack, bouncing nervously at the door. She asked me for the 5th time, "Mommy, is Daddy coming?" I forced a smile, though inside my stomach knotted. And then, finally, the familiar sound of his tires crunching on the driveway. He stepped out, sunglasses on, smiling like he owned the world. That smile, the same one that fooled judges, teachers, even my own mother. "Sorry I'm late," he said casually, like we weren't standing there for 30 minutes. Then, in front of our daughter, he added with a chuckle, "Your mom always gets so uptight about schedules." Just like that, the atmosphere shifted. My daughter's eyes flicked to me, half believing him, half waiting for my reaction. And I stayed silent, because I knew if I defended myself, he'd twist it into fighting in front of the child. That's how it always went. When people hear the word narcissist, they think of arrogance, vanity. What they don't see is the subtle cruelty. The way a narcissist weaponizes love, law, even children. The court once said I was uncooperative. But tell me, what does cooperation mean when every agreement is a trap? When every compromise is twisted against you? I tried to do the right thing. I tried to follow the rules. And yet, somehow, I became the villain in my own story. That day, during drop-off, he crouched to our daughter's level and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Daddy always makes time for you, doesn't he?" Not like Mommy, I froze. My throat burned. He knew exactly what he was doing. My daughter's little hand tightened around his, her eyes clouding with confusion. I wanted to scream, to tell her the truth. But one look at his smirk reminded me. He wanted that reaction. Because then he could tell the court, "See? She can't control herself." So instead, I swallowed my rage. I hugged my daughter quickly before she climbed into his car. My lips touched her hair and I whispered, "I love you, don't forget that." He slammed the car door, gave me a mocking salute, and drove off. And I was left standing there, alone but not broken. Not yet. That was the beginning of the hardest chapter of my life. A chapter where truth didn't matter, only appearances. Where the court believed his smooth words and punished my silence. But what the court didn't see were the nights my daughter cried in my arms. The little lies he planted. The way he was already planning my destruction. Long before we ever stepped into a courtroom. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. But only if you truly enjoy what I'm sharing here. And let me know in the comments. Where are you watching this from? Morning? Evening? Because this isn't just my story. This could be anyone's. And if you've ever been forced to cooperate with someone who thrives on control, you'll know exactly how this nightmare begins. I thought I could survive co-parenting with a narcissist, but soon I would learn. He'd been planning this all along. When people ask me, "Didn't you see the signs?" I don't know how to answer. Because at first there were no signs. He was dazzling. That's the only word I can use. The first time I met him, he leaned in with that charming smile, the one that would later haunt me, and said, "I've been waiting to meet someone like you." And I believed him. He remembered every detail about me. The kind of coffee I drank. The book I carried in my purse. He sent flowers to my office, not just once, but on random Tuesdays. Just because. My friends said I was glowing. My family said I was lucky. My mother especially told me, "Don't mess this up. Men like him don't come around twice." And back then, I agreed. But little by little, the mask slipped. It started with jokes, comments like, "You'd look better if you didn't wear that." Or, "You're cute when you're confused." At first, I laughed them off. Who doesn't tease in a relationship, right? But soon, it wasn't teasing. It was controlling. He'd insist on choosing restaurants, then criticize me for never making decisions. He'd scroll through my phone, then call me paranoid if I asked about his. And then, one night, after I questioned a lie he told, he stared at me with an unsettling calm and said, "You should really stop keeping track of these little things. People will think you're obsessive." That sentence, I didn't know it then, but it was his strategy. From the very beginning, he was training me to doubt myself. What I later discovered was even worse. While I thought we were building a life together, he was documenting mine. Screenshots of texts, notes about arguments. He was saving tiny moments, not to fix us, but to use them against me one day. Looking back, I see it clearly. He wasn't just being controlling. He was preparing a case. The day I realized something was deeply wrong was during a dinner with friends. I laughed too loud at a joke someone else told, and he squeezed my knees so hard under the table, I flinched. When I looked at him, he didn't smile. He mouthed one word. "Careful." Everyone else thought we were the perfect couple. They saw the flowers, the hand-holding, the rehearsed tenderness. But behind closed doors, I was already a prisoner. That's what narcissists do best. They build a mask so flawless, everyone else swears it's real. And when you finally scream for help, no one believes you. Sometimes I wonder, did he love me at all? Or was I just a project? A performance to perfect? Because the man I fell in love with never truly existed. He was a mask. And the mask was the trap. The first custody hearing felt like walking into a play I didn't audition for. And he was the star. He walked in wearing his best suit, polished shoes shining, hair slicked back just enough to look professional but approachable. He shook hands with everyone. Bailiff, clerk, even the judge. Smiling, laughing. Like this was his stage. Meanwhile, I sat there with trembling hands, clutching a folder of evidence. My heart pounded in my ears. When it was his turn to speak, he stood up slowly, adjusting his tie, voice calm and measured. "Your Honor, I only want what's best for our daughter. I've done everything possible to keep things civil, but unfortunately, her mother has made that difficult." Those words pierced me. Civil? He whispered threats in parking lots. He showed up late, skipped visits, mocked me in front of our child. But here he was, gentle, reasonable, the model father. The judge nodded, taking notes. During recess, as soon as we stepped into the hallway, his smile vanished. He leaned close, his voice low, cutting like glass. "Keep fighting me, and I'll bury you in this court." "You'll regret every word you say," I froze, clutching my papers tighter. When I tried to respond, he straightened up instantly, voice warm again. "We're just having a tough time adjusting, aren't we?" He said loudly enough for others nearby to hear. Two faces, one for the world, one for me. What made it worse was how easily people believed him. He told the judge I was alienating our daughter, keeping her from loving him. He said I was rigid with rules and unwilling to compromise. And when it was my turn to speak, I could feel the weight of suspicion already stacked against me. My words sounded defensive, emotional. His? Smooth, logical, practiced. I wanted to scream, "This isn't who he is." But every time I raised my voice, the judge's eyes hardened, as if proving his point. By the end of that session, it wasn't just his words haunting me. It was the realization that the court didn't see truth. It saw performance. And on that stage, he was winning. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the court transcript. Every phrase he'd used was calculated, designed to paint me as combative. That's when it hit me. He wasn't defending his rights as a father. He was building a case to destroy me. It started with the texts. Short, confusing, contradictory. On Monday, he wrote, "I'll pick her up at 5. On Wednesday, "Actually, 7 works better. You never cooperate." By Friday, he told the judge I refused to let him see our daughter at 5. See the trap? Every message was a setup. Every shift in plans designed to make me look rigid. And when I pushed back, when I dared to say, "Stick to the schedule," he called me inflexible, uncooperative, even hostile. So I started documenting everything. Screenshots, printouts, timelines. I built files so detailed I thought there was no way a judge could ignore them. But I was wrong. When I presented my evidence, the judge frowned. "You're over-documenting," he said. "This makes you look obsessive. Children need flexibility, not rigidity obsessive." That word stung worse than any insult my ex ever threw at me, because it came from the system I believed was supposed to protect us. And yet, what choice did I have? If I didn't keep records, I'd be accused of lying. If I did, I looked unstable. That's the cruel paradox of gaslighting. The more you try to prove the truth, the more insane you look. One night, after another schedule mix-up, he dropped our daughter off late. Her hair was wet from the pool, no homework done, bedtime long past. When I said softly, "It's too late, she's exhausted," he grinned and pulled out his phone. Click. "See? Always complaining. I'll remember this," he whispered. That picture later appeared in court, captioned, "She constantly criticizes me in front of our child." It felt like a chess game I couldn't win. He thought 5 moves ahead. Every word, every sigh, every raised eyebrow became ammunition. And me? I was just trying to keep my daughter on a bedtime routine. The worst part? My daughter started noticing. She'd look at me nervously and say, "Don't be mad at Daddy." Or worse, "Daddy said you always make things complicated." Each time I bit back tears, because correcting her would make me the manipulative one. Staying silent made me the guilty one. There was no right move. One evening, staring at stacks of highlighted messages, I asked myself, was I really the problem? That's the danger of gaslighting. It makes you question your own sanity. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't losing my mind. I was living in his game. I never imagined he could reach into my own family and twist them against me. But he did. It started subtly. He began taking our daughter to visit my relatives, without me. At first, I thought it was good. At least she was spending time with grandparents, aunts, uncles. But then, little comments started slipping out. My sister called one evening and said, "He told us you've been making things difficult. Why can't you just be more cooperative?" That word again. Cooperative. The more they saw him, the more they believed him. My mother, the woman who raised me, the woman who once whispered, "Don't mess this up. He's a good man," started parroting his lines. "He just wants peace. You're always so tense. Maybe you are being too rigid." I stared at her, speechless. She didn't even realize she was repeating his exact words, almost like he scripted her. Family dinners became unbearable. My relatives would glance at me with pity, then nod sympathetically at him. He played the role of the misunderstood father perfectly, smiling, patient, willing to compromise. And me? I was painted as the bitter, angry one. It's a strange kind of betrayal when your bloodline believes a stranger over you, when your truth is buried under someone else's performance. One Sunday, I picked up my daughter from my mother's house. She climbed into the car and whispered, "Grandma said you should be nicer to Daddy." My chest tightened. Tears stung my eyes. How do you explain to a child that the people she loves are being manipulated? How do you fight lies that sound so sweet, so believable, when the truth feels heavy and ugly? Later that night, I confronted my mother. I begged her, "Please stop letting him twist you." She shook her head and said, "We just want what's best for the child. And maybe you should try harder." Her words broke something in me, because it wasn't just me against him anymore. It was me against him, and the people I once leaned on for strength. That was the night I realized, a narcissist doesn't just isolate you by yelling or punishing. They isolate you by charming everyone around you, until you're standing alone in the middle of a crowded room. Question for you. What's worse, losing your partner or losing your family's trust? Because I lost both. And soon, I would start losing my daughter's trust too. It was subtle at first. Little phrases, Innocent-sounding questions. Daddy says you don't like him. Daddy says you don't want me to be happy. Daddy says you get mad a lot. Each time my daughter repeated those words, it felt like a knife slipping between my ribs. One night, after school, she looked at me with big worried eyes and asked, "Mommy, why are you mean to Daddy?" My heart dropped. I knelt down, brushing her hair back, and said softly, "Sweetheart, I'm not mean to Daddy. Sometimes grown-ups just see things differently." But she frowned, pulling away. "Daddy said you'd say that." Do you know what it feels like when your own child doubts your love because someone is scripting her? It's like watching a thief steal pieces of her heart, one by one. I tried not to correct her too harshly. I didn't want to be accused of coaching her. So I smiled through the ache, hugging her tighter, whispering, "I love you. That's the only truth you need, but the damage was already spreading." She'd come home praising him. "Daddy lets me stay up late. Daddy says rules are boring. Daddy says you don't want me to have fun." And when I gently enforced boundaries, homework, bedtime, healthy meals, she cried, "You're always ruining things." Then came the guardian ad litem's report. I read it line by line, hands shaking. It said I was emotionally pressuring the child, that my home was too tense, that I might be subtly influencing her against her father. Influencing? Number. I was trying to undo his influence. But on paper, it looked exactly as he planned. The next hearing felt like déjà vu. He leaned forward and said in his calm, practiced voice, "Your Honor, I only ask that our daughter be allowed to love both of us freely. But her mother, she makes that impossible." And the judge nodded. Again, I wanted to scream, because the very act of defending myself would sound like proof that I was the problem. That night, when I tucked my daughter into bed, she whispered, "Mommy, I don't want to pick sides." Tears burned my eyes. "You don't have to, baby. You never have to." But deep inside, I knew. He had already forced her into the middle. It was his idea. "Why don't we do family dinners? Show her we can get along." On the surface, it sounded reasonable, even noble. A child seeing her parents cooperate. But with him, nothing was ever what it seemed. The first dinner was at a cozy Italian restaurant. My daughter's face lit up when we sat together. For a brief moment, I thought, maybe this could help her. Maybe peace was possible. But then, he switched into performance mode. He charmed the waiter. He cracked jokes with my daughter, leaning in, whispering, "See? Mommy and Daddy can get along if she tries." And the whole time, I felt like an actress forced into a role I didn't audition for. The trap snapped shut 2 weeks later. At the next court session, he stood up and said smoothly, "Your Honor, I've invited her to family dinners. I'm trying to create harmony, but she refuses. She won't compromise." He painted me as the villain for saying no to more staged dinners. The judge frowned at me, scribbling notes. Worse still, he started recording me. At one of those dinners, after he forgot to pick up our daughter from school, I snapped, "You can't keep doing this." "She deserves better," I didn't shout. But my voice shook with anger, and he, calm as ever, slipped his phone from under the table. Click. Record. That recording later played in court. A single clip stripped of context, echoing through the room. "You can't keep doing this. She deserves better." And suddenly, I wasn't a mother fighting for her daughter. I was an angry woman lashing out. The irony? He never showed the part where he smirked and whispered, "Go on, lose your temper. It'll sound great in court." That's how false cooperation works. On the surface, it looks like compromise. In reality, it's another battlefield, where every word is a weapon waiting to be twisted. One night, after another staged dinner, I sat alone in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I asked myself, was I feeding his game by showing up at all? But if I refused, I'd look uncooperative. Damned if I did. Damned if I didn't. Money. With him, it was never about providing. It was about power. When the court ordered child support, I thought it would bring some relief. A guarantee that our daughter's needs would be met, no matter his mood. But I quickly learned that for a narcissist, even money is just another chain. The payments came, sometimes, sporadic. A check here, a transfer there. Then long gaps of nothing. When I asked, he smirked. Maybe if you were nicer, things would move faster. If I pressed too hard, he'd flip the script in court. She's money-obsessed. Always nagging me. She uses finances as a weapon. And the terrifying part? The judge listened. I remember one particular hearing where I pointed out the unpaid months. My lawyer handed over bank statements. Clear proof. He leaned back, calm, hands folded, and said, "Your Honor, I've been under financial strain." She knows this, but instead of supporting me, she attacks me. She cares more about money than our child's relationship with me. And the judge, who had just scolded me for over-documenting, nodded sympathetically at him. My evidence became another mark against me. Meanwhile, I was the one covering school supplies, medical bills, clothes that our daughter outgrew too quickly. I picked up extra shifts, cut corners, stretched every dollar. And yet, he made me look greedy. It wasn't just about withholding money. It was about control. He dangled payments like bait. "If you let me have her for the holiday, I'll send the check." Or, "If you agree to drop that motion, maybe I'll catch up." Every exchange was a transaction. Every transaction was a trap. And of course, he flaunted money when it suited him. Expensive gifts for our daughter, gadgets, toys, trips, while I struggled to pay for her dental appointment. Then, he'd tell the court, "See, I provide more than she does." How do you fight that? How do you explain that real parenting isn't about flashy presents? It's about showing up every single day? One night, I broke down in front of my best friend. "I can't keep doing this," I whispered. "He's choking me without ever touching me." Because that's what financial abuse feels like. Slow strangulation, invisible to everyone else. I thought therapy would save us. Not us, as in him and me, but our daughter. She was only a child, caught in the middle of storms she never asked for. I wanted her to have a safe space. Someone neutral. Someone who could help her sort through the confusion. When I suggested counseling, he smiled. Too quickly. "Great idea," he said. "I know just the right therapist." At the time, I was relieved. Cooperation. Finally. I thought maybe this was one decision we could agree on, but I didn't know he already had the therapist in his pocket. From the very first session, the focus wasn't on our daughter's needs. It was on me. The therapist asked leading questions. "Do you think your tension might be affecting her? Could your strict routines be causing stress?" I answered honestly, pouring out my heart. But my words came back twisted in the reports. Weeks later, I sat in court while the therapist calmly testified. The father appears cooperative. The mother is unwilling to compromise. Her rigidity may be harming the child emotionally. I felt the blood drain from my face. My words, my vulnerability, turned into his evidence. When I confronted him outside, shaking with anger, he smirked. "Told you therapy would help," he whispered. That was the moment I realized. Even a professional, even someone trained to see manipulation, could be weaponized by him. The damage seeped into my daughter's mind, too. After a session, she told me, "The therapist says I should have fun with Daddy and not worry about rules. How do you argue against that without looking like the villain?" If I resisted, I was controlling. If I agreed, I let him dismantle every boundary. I spent nights reading every parenting book I could find, desperately searching for strategies. But books don't teach you how to fight someone who scripts the narrative before you even open your mouth. At the next hearing, the judge looked at me with weary eyes. "Why can't you follow the therapist's recommendations?" I wanted to shout. because the therapist only hears his story. But instead, I swallowed my rage and answered softly, "I'm trying, Your Honor." The truth didn't matter. The story already belonged to him. I thought school would be a safe zone, a place untouched by our battles, but I was wrong. It started with a phone call from her teacher. "She came in upset today," the teacher said gently. "She told us her mom doesn't let her see her dad. We just want to make sure everything is okay at home." My chest tightened. I knew instantly where those words came from. He had been planting lies again. The truth? He canceled half his visits, last-minute excuses, work meetings, travel, emergencies. I had the text to prove it. But to my daughter, he spun it differently. "I wanted to come, but Mommy wouldn't let me." And she believed him. Why wouldn't she? He was her dad. Soon, it wasn't just her teacher. The school counselor reached out too. "We're concerned she feels caught in the middle," they said. "She says her mom keeps her from having fun with her dad." Fun. That word again. Of course I had rules. Bedtimes, homework, limits on screen time. But he had no boundaries, no structure. To a child who looks better? The parent with candy and late nights, or the one insisting on brushing teeth before bed? Then I learned the worst part. He was emailing teachers directly. Polite, polished notes. "I'm worried my daughter's mother isn't supporting my relationship with her. Please let me know if she ever seems withdrawn. I want to help." Can you imagine? He cast himself as the concerned father. And me? By default, I became the problem. At the next parent-teacher conference, he showed up early, shook everyone's hand, praised the school. When I walked in, I felt the shift, the subtle glances, the cautious smiles. I knew what they were thinking. There's the difficult one. It didn't matter that I was the one who packed lunches, checked homework, sat through every parent night. In their eyes, I was already tainted by his narrative. That night, my daughter asked, "Mommy, why won't you let Daddy come to school events?" He said you don't want him there. I swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, I never said that. Daddy can always come. Sometimes, he just doesn't." She frowned. "But Daddy said..." And that's when I realized truth didn't matter anymore. Only the story he told her. I stayed awake late, staring at my ceiling, wondering how many more people he would recruit into his play. Teachers, counselors, family, friends, everyone who mattered in my daughter's life. It felt like watching my own world crumble, piece by piece, while he stood smiling on the ruins. I thought I was strong enough to outlast him. But even the strongest walls crack under constant pressure. The breaking point came after yet another humiliating court session. I sat there while he spoke calmly, rehearsed as always. "Your Honor, I've done everything to work with her. But she resists. She escalates. She refuses to co-parent." And me? When it was my turn, my voice shook. I sounded emotional, defensive. I knew it, and the judge knew it. And he leaned back with that look in his eyes. The one that said, "Got you again." That night, I came home, locked the door, and collapsed on the kitchen floor. The house was silent except for my sobs. Friends told me, "Stop fighting him. Play nice. Don't let him get to you." But they didn't understand. Playing nice was playing his game. And in his game, I could never win. Then came the discovery that shattered me even more. A friend pulled me aside after court and whispered, "Do you know he's dating the court clerk's cousin?" At first, I thought it was gossip. But then I noticed the way the clerk smiled at him, the way she lingered when handing him documents. He wasn't just charming the courtroom, he was sleeping with someone tied to it. That explained everything. His smug confidence, his ease when rulings tilted in his favor. He wasn't just playing against me. He had allies behind the curtain. I felt cornered, powerless. For the first time, I thought about giving up. Was I damaging my daughter more by fighting than by surrendering? Was every tear she cried at night proof that I was failing her? I looked at her asleep one night, curled up, clutching her stuffed rabbit, and whispered, "Am I saving you? Or am I destroying you?" The thought haunted me, because when the system feels rigged, when truth feels irrelevant, when even family takes his side, what's left to fight for? And yet, every time I considered giving in, a voice inside me rose up. No. She deserves at least one parent who won't quit. But I was exhausted. Utterly, bone-deep exhausted. And the next twist, what the judge would do with my daughter's cries, would break me even further. One night, my daughter curled into my lap, tears soaking my shirt. "Mommy, can you please stop fighting, Daddy? I just want peace." Her little voice trembled, fragile but clear. And in that moment, guilt slammed into me. She wasn't asking for toys or trips. She was begging for a life without war. I stroked her hair and whispered, "I don't want to fight, baby. I just want you to feel safe." But inside I knew. Those words weren't entirely hers. They were his. The next court hearing, I tried to explain. "Your Honor, she's crying at night. She says she doesn't want us to fight anymore. She feels pressured." The judge's eyes hardened. "Do not involve the child in this conflict," he snapped. "Using her words to support your case is manipulative." Manipulative. That word cut deeper than any insult before. I wanted to scream, "She begged me. She's the one suffering." But my voice stuck in my throat, because no matter what I said, I looked guilty. Meanwhile, he smiled in court, calm as ever. "I encourage her to love her mother," he said, "but her mother, she always makes her choose sides." And once again, the judge nodded. That night, when I tucked my daughter in, she asked softly, "Will the judge make you and Daddy stop being mad?" I kissed her forehead. "I don't know, sweetheart." Because the truth was, the judge wasn't stopping anything. He was feeding it, by silencing the only voice that mattered. Hers. The irony is cruel. A child at the center of a custody battle has no real voice. Her tears are dismissed as manipulation. Her words are filtered through reports, twisted until they mean the opposite of what she feels. I kept wondering, what does that teach her about honesty? About trust? At school, she began withdrawing, drawing pictures of broken houses, telling friends she wished her parents would stop yelling, even though the yelling mostly came from him. But none of that reached the court. None of it mattered. I lay awake night after night, haunted by her plea. "I just want peace." And I realized even her cries had been turned into weapons against me. Question for you. Should children's emotional pleas ever be part of custody decisions, or should they be shielded completely? Because in my case, her voice was silenced. And the next move I considered, going public, could risk everything.
By then, I was suffocating. The lies, the twisted narratives, the way the court swallowed every word he spun, it all piled so high I felt buried alive. I started thinking dangerous thoughts. What if I told the world? What if I posted the texts, the emails, the recordings online? Exposed the mask he wore so flawlessly in court? One night, I sat at my computer, finger hovering over upload. Screenshots lined my desktop, messages where he mocked me, admitted to skipping visits, bragged about manipulating teachers. Proof. Evidence. I imagined people rallying behind me. Friends, strangers, mothers who'd lived the same nightmare. I imagined pulling the mask off his face in front of everyone. But then, fear crept in. What if it backfired? He'd already painted me as vindictive, obsessed with reputation. If I went public, wouldn't that prove his case? Wouldn't the court say, "See? She's unstable. She's exposing private matters to humiliate him and worse." What if it hurt my daughter? She was already struggling under the weight of our war. Did I really want her classmates' parents whispering about her family? I asked a close friend, desperate for advice. She grabbed my hands and whispered, "Don't do it. He'll use it against you. That's what he wants." I sank back, tears burning my eyes, because she was right. Every time I thought I'd found a weapon, it turned into another trap. Then, the hammer dropped. He filed for full custody. His petition read like a script. The mother is unstable, vindictive, and obsessed with control. She is incapable of cooperative parenting. For the child's well-being, custody should be granted solely to the father. Reading those words, I felt my knees buckle. It was everything he'd been building toward from the very beginning. The charm, the lies, the staged dinners, the therapy trap, the schoolyard manipulation. All of it. Pieces of a puzzle leading to this moment. And the most terrifying part? He was winning. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, asking myself, do I stay quiet and risk losing my daughter? Or do I scream the truth and risk losing her faster? No choice felt safe.
I thought I had finally found the crack in his armor. It came by accident. An email chain forwarded to me by someone who used to be his friend. At first, I didn't want to open it. I was too tired of evidence that led nowhere. But curiosity won. And what I read made my blood run cold. In those emails, he bragged about his strategy. I poke her until she snaps, then record it. Judges eat that up. The more obsessive she looks with her notes, the better I look. She thinks she's fighting for the kid. I'm just fighting to win every fear I'd had, every suspicion. It was all there, written in his own words. Proof that he wasn't just difficult, he was deliberate, calculated. He had been planning my downfall from the very start. I rushed to my lawyer, heart pounding. This changes everything, right? This proves he's been manipulating the system. My lawyer scanned the emails, sighed, and shook his head. It's ugly. It's cruel. But it doesn't change much. Courts don't punish strategy. They punish appearances. And on paper, he still looks like the stable parent. I couldn't breathe. So what? You're telling me this won't matter? That he admits to provoking me and it doesn't count? He looked at me with pity. It's not about truth. It's about presentation. I left that office shaking, clutching the papers like they were a lifeline unraveling in my hands. I thought about showing the judge anyway. Thought about slamming those emails onto the courtroom table, shouting, "See?" He admits it. But then I imagined the judge's face. Cool, detached, maybe even annoyed. So you went digging through private messages? Sounds vindictive. Even my golden ticket could be turned into another weapon against me. That night, I sat in my daughter's room watching her sleep. Her chest rose and fell softly, innocence untouched by the war raging around her. And I whispered, I don't know how to protect you in a world where lies look cleaner than truth. The betrayal wasn't just his emails. It was the system itself. A system that rewarded polish over pain, smiles over scars. And I realized I was never meant to win. Not in court. The only victory left was one I had to define for myself. In the end, the court didn't change its ruling. The word uncooperative still clung to my name like a stain. But something inside me had changed. I stopped waiting for the system to save me. I stopped believing that truth alone could outweigh his performance. And for the first time in years, I chose peace. Even if it wasn't the kind I imagined. That peace didn't come from him. It didn't come from the judge. It came from me. I started focusing on the moments that mattered. Packing my daughter's lunch with little notes tucked inside. Singing softly as I brushed her hair. Whispering every night, "You are loved." No matter what anyone says. Because I realized, maybe I couldn't win in his courtroom. But I could still win in her heart. One evening, after another exhausting exchange, she hugged me tight and said, "Mommy, you always come back. You never leave me." Tears spilled down my cheeks. That was it. My victory. Not full custody. Not a judge's praise. Just that one sentence from the only person whose opinion truly mattered. Don't get me wrong. I still ache for justice. I still lie awake some nights, replaying the lies, the betrayals, the emails that proved everything but counted for nothing. But I've stopped letting his game define me. I am not uncooperative. I am a mother who refused to let lies rewrite her love. If you've stayed with me until the end, maybe your heart has felt something too. Maybe you've seen your own reflection in these words. So, leave me a comment. Tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you keep fighting or would you step back for peace? And don't forget, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me if you want to hear more stories like this. I may have lost battles in court, but I reclaimed something more powerful, my voice. And no one, not him, not the judge, not the system, can take that from me again. Thank you for listening to the whole story. I hope you will support my future works.